Hello, I'm excited today to introduce Maryann Larusso. She's a writer and creator of the More Beautiful Project and also the More Beautiful podcast, which includes an online magazine, the podcast and newsletter for women in midlife. So you can tell we have a lot in common here. Maryann brings to More Beautiful 3 decades of experience as a journalist and media executive. She's a graduate of the Medill School of Journalism at Northwestern and began her career as a newspaper reporter in New York. So later she segued into the world of fashion magazine publishing. She's a native New Yorker, but currently lives in San Francisco with her husband, kids, and a rescue dog named Mochi. When she's not writing or podcasting, she enjoys running, singing, cooking, traveling, and volunteering in organizations such as She Can and Best Buddies. Oh, I'm excited to talk to Maryann and to share more about her with all of you. Maryann, welcome.
Hi, Hillary. Thank you for having me. I'm so excited. And by the way, I sing badly, so you should have mentioned that. I'm not a singer. I'm a sing in the shower type of girl.
Oh, I love it. Well, I am not winning any awards for singing, but I love to just get it out and put myself out there. So it's okay. I think one of the messages we want to deliver is releasing perfection. And we're just going to dig right in with the media impact on redefining beauty and how it's impacted us. So my first question is, what really led you to start the More Beautiful Project?
Thank you. That's a great question. Well, as you know, I was a journalist for many years. I worked in the crazy world of magazine publishing, and I wrote a lot about fashion and beauty. And I eventually freelanced, while I was raising my kids, and continued to write in those fields. And as I got older, I started to notice that we women were given a lot of messages about what we no longer had, right? Or what we were losing. We were losing collagen. We were losing estrogen. We were losing our kids when they flee the nest. We were losing our youth, our looks, you name it. The list goes on. And I said, wait, no, we're not losing things. I think we're gaining them. We're gaining wisdom, we're gaining experience, we've gained perspective, we're gaining empathy, compassion. I knew for one that as I was getting into my 40s and now 50s, that I was just a much better person. I would have made a much better manager, a much better employer. I was certainly a better writer, after having experienced motherhood and all the other stuff that comes with getting older. And so I wanted More Beautiful to be about what we have more of and embracing it.
Oh, that's so much more energizing. Instead of thinking about the loss or less than, the more of and being better. And kind of a contemporary thing, I just heard in the news today that there were several kind of media people and anchors that they lost their jobs because one of them had said, oh, women are past their prime in their 20s and 30s and maybe 40s. And I would counter that with, we are just approaching our prime in our 50s. And I can say that, yes. And so that's the culture though. And so what did you notice? What were those messages that we got early on?
Yeah, early on. By early on, I'm assuming you mean when we were growing up, when we were teenagers in our 20s, 30s, right? I think
messages of the 70s, the 80s. Yes.
Yeah. Well, I don't know if you have 10 hours, but I could go on and on about this. I do think, everything, and I say this a lot in my writing and when I'm, on shows and stuff, we were given everything. We were fed everything through the lens of the male perspective, right? The white male perspective, this male gaze, right? And we were shown what the white man wanted to see, right? Which was young, beautiful, white women doing their thing. And once women got to a certain age, and I think back in the 70s, it was like, if you were a model or an actress, once you were 30, you were over the hill. And they were given the boot. And so we never got to see older women and all their beauty and relevance, and then don't even get me started about the body dysmorphia, the thinness, the way that we grew up thinking skinny was the only way to be. I mean, it just goes on and on, the media images that we were bombarded with. And I think the kids today, I'm dating myself. I do think this latest generation really has a different, they're looking at it from a very different way, and they're getting the guys on board, right? And they're seeing that there are so many different types of women, and they're embracing all sizes, all ethnicities, all races, all colors, all, body types. And I think it's so beautiful. And I kind of feel bad for our generation that we didn't have that, but I think we can still kind of embrace that.
Yes, we are on a mission to redeem our generation and
Right.
future generations. And you're right, it is the younger generation. Our daughters, our sons are thinking differently, believing differently, the body positivity movement.
Mhm.
And not only from the 70s, the Twiggy stick model where you couldn't have a figure, to
Right.
even today with, in modern times, this Ozempic, people using a medication for weight loss. And there seems to be a huge kind of almost a return to that the only way to have value is to be skinny and look perfect. And I completely disagree with it,
Yeah.
that health is really important and how we think about ourselves is really important.
Agree. Loving the skin that we're in. And interestingly, I've noticed that there are people like Adele, for instance, right? She got flack for losing weight, which is so interesting to me because yes, she was beautiful before she lost, 100 pounds. She's beautiful now. And I don't think we should really make either a priority. We should love the skin we're in. We should do what makes us feel good. And as you said, health is the number one priority, right? But I want to see women stop judging one another for their looks in any way.
Absolutely. And I can say from personal experience that when we're judging other people, it's actually coming from a place of we're judging ourselves and we're comparing and measuring ourselves, our health, our weight, our size to other women. And it's time to have a new narrative and a new message. And if someone feels better and is healthier and making good choices, but it doesn't need to be that everything about you is wrong and
Mhm.
the only way to be right. Because even when I notice famous people that have had some work done, I don't recognize them anymore.
Yeah. Yeah. It's interesting, isn't it?
And I do a double take and I think, well, I've not had any work done.
Neither
And
have
I'm
I
okay
yet.
with that. It's okay if I have a wrinkle. It's okay that my lips are the size and the shape they are. It's okay that my chest is the size it is. I always waited for it to be like my mother's. I always waited for my chest to grow to be the size of my mother's.
Oh, that's
And
funny.
that's just not how genetics work.
Yeah, yeah. I actually like my wrinkles. I love wrinkles on everybody, actually, especially the ones around the eyes. And like it shows this twinkle and a spark, this love of life. I think if you're showing your little crow's feet, that means you're having a good time and you're laughing and you're enjoying yourself.
Absolutely. Yes. I like to see facial expressions on people. And
Mhm.
speaking of sparkle, I've taken a brave challenge over the years and I stopped coloring my hair. It's not fancy if someone is catching this on YouTube. Usually I have it styled a little bit, but accepting ourselves and releasing that perfection is really important to feel good in our bodies, in our minds, and in our businesses. So
Absolutely. And I
I
love your
appreciate it.
hair like that. It's beautiful. So keep going.
Thank you. Well, I'd like to touch on just a little bit about what inspired you to create the More Beautiful project and podcast, not only from the fashion writing perspective and body acceptance, but it goes back a little bit deeper. Would you mind sharing about the loss that inspired you into this?
Oh, yeah. Well, I was mentioning to Hillary when we were chatting earlier that I had a lot of loss early on in my life. My father passed away when he was 46. He was a marathon runner and he was out jogging one morning, his usual 10 miles, and he got a massive heart attack. I was in college and my grandmother, who I never met, my father's mother, died of a stroke at age 46. My paternal grandfather died at 50 from a heart attack. My aunt died at not even 40. So, a lot of loss, a lot of this growing up with this feeling of I'm running out of time, and that number, because a couple of people had died at age 46, that number 46 was very scary to me. And I remember just being so terrified when I turned 46, thinking I was going to die, and then celebrating when I turned 47. My girlfriends took me out. We were like, yes, she made it to 47. But it took me a while to realize that you don't have to be your family history. You don't have to be subject to those illnesses, those diseases. You can do things, right? So I kind of I empowered myself by taking charge of my health. And I was always a really healthy person, but I kind of took it to next level, like really watching what I ate, really, doing all the things, making sure I was exercising, taking time for my mental health and to recharge my batteries and to not be stressed all the time, and doing all the things that we should be doing, but when you're faced with this kind of family history, you kind of say, look, I've got to do it. It's not a matter of, do I feel like doing it? I got to do it. And I need to set an example for my own kids. So to your earlier point and question about the beauty thing, for me, like staying healthy is it's all about me being here for my kids, being here for my husband, enjoying my golden years, But you're right. I mean, those kinds of losses do take a toll. And I started noticing that women around me were feeling like they were running out of time too, for related reasons, but also because, we get to a certain age and society is telling us, pack it up, you're no longer relevant, And I was like, no, that's not going to happen. We are very much relevant. We have many years ahead of us. And we need to embrace it, and we need to support one another, and we need to talk about this stuff. We need to talk about it. We can't keep it in the dark shadows anymore, and that includes menopause, hormone stuff, challenges we're going through with our kids, with our, partners, with ourselves, with our bodies, the whole thing. We need to get it out there and talk about it.
Yes, I agree. More talking about all of these things. And what led me to start the podcast was, why are women not talking about these things?
Yes.
Why are people suffering in silence and thinking, well, I must be the only one feeling like this? Or why didn't my mother talk about this? Or why didn't my sister talk about this?
Right.
And I've gotten a lot of flack these last few years of, why are you talking about this?
Me too.
Because we need to, and there's enough room out there to have as many women as possible at the table. There's enough room for everyone to have these conversations. And the more women that show up and share, then we change those messages for all the women who come after us.
Mm-hmm. Hillary, I'm so happy you're doing what you're doing, and you're so right. And I so admire the fact that you plowed through, even though you got some apprehension from people around you. I want to ask you a question, because do people say to you, I don't like the term midlife or middle age? Because when I started my project, girlfriends were like, don't use those words.
Oh, absolutely. I've done some polls on social media because I got a lot of flack, and people will say, and usually it's people in their early 40s, I don't like the term midlife. And I'm like, okay, just because the psychology books and developmental specialists say midlife is generally age 40 to 60, they're just kind of giving it a range, kind of like teens is more defined, 13 to 19. Right. But midlife is a bigger stage. And the feedback I received was, people think it's saying, well, you're midway, you're halfway done. And it points to an ending. So the answers I got were, some people are like, no, I'm a Gen X. I'm like, I don't even know what that means.
Gen X is now could be 42, 40, you're 42 or 43. That's the youngest of Gen X.
Right. And
I'm Gen X and I'm 54. So.
Okay. See, so it's kind of this, is it the generation of the age you're at? Is this the stage? Is it development? Some people said, oh, it's my second act. Oh, it's my next chapter. And I thought, whatever you want to call it, you can call it whatever you want, but we had to start somewhere. If you're writing a blog,
there's no other word.
you need to come up with some words. And some people have very strong feelings, and I honor that. And I think that's how you and I can have these conversations. We're both willing to use the term midlife.
Listen, if I'm in the middle of my life at 54, I say, bring it. That's awesome.
I hope at 52 that I'm going to make it to 104. We just had One of my aunts, her mother just celebrated her 104th birthday.
Oh,
She
that's wonderful.
is still gardening and driving. It's possible. It's how you take care of yourself physically, mentally, emotionally. For some people, spiritually, whether it's a faith practice or their purpose and passion in how they're showing up in life. So
Yeah.
I just want the message for women to know you can do something completely new and different in your 40s, in your
Oh,
50s,
yeah.
in your 60s.
That's what it's all about. That's who Hillary and I are talking to on a regular basis. Women who are pivoting and doing these incredible things in their 40s and 50s. I mean, there's so many of us.
There are, and they lead to these great conversations. And I love how you've shared. So thank you on it's how are you taking care of your health? Are you noticing what you're eating, what you're drinking, how you're moving? Because a lot of us think that, well, we're so busy either with our careers or with children or with life that we don't have time for ourselves. And we're actually not serving ourselves as we could. And sometimes people wait until it's too late to make those changes. I had a forced change for my health as well. I needed to get really clear on my relationship with food, with alcohol, with exercise. And was I being really honest with myself and doing what I needed? Have you had any experiences where you really had to reevaluate what you were eating, how you were moving?
You know, I have always been, I don't know how this got ingrained into me because there was a lot of obesity on my maternal side. My mother, I'm sorry, can you guys hear that? There's a little bit of noise on my end. I'm so sorry. My mother, my aunts, they were all extremely overweight. And I hate to use that term because now everyone's talking, you can't say anyone's overweight, but they were at unhealthy stages where it affected their health. And I think I can say that because they had diabetes, they got type 2 diabetes, they had health problems, they got cancer, my mom barely exercised. And so I had that going on my mom's side, combined with my dad's side being, the heart disease. So my sister and I both just made this like conscious effort when we were very young to eat healthy, to research diet and exercise. I was on the track team in high school and I've been a runner ever since. So I still run almost every day, at least 2 miles. It makes me feel good. It clears my head. It keeps my weight, I think, at a place where I feel good. I had to say I'm motivated by fashion because I was a fashion editor for many years and I love my clothes and I want to keep fitting into them. So that's a little, vain, but I'm being honest here. And also just the way I pay attention to the way food makes me feel. I once had this employee in New York and, we were passing around some Halloween treats one time. And I said, hey, you want some of these? And I'll never forget what she said. She said to me, I don't eat sugar. And I said, why? And she said, Maryann, because it doesn't make me feel good. And I never forgot that. And now every time I put something in my mouth, I think, is this worth it? Is it going to make me feel good? And now in midlife, Hillary, like more things than ever don't make me feel good. Drinking, sugar, let's go out, dairy, too many carbs, like it's crazy. But I try to just stay, keep it just balance. It's all about balance, right? You got to have pleasure in life, but you also have to just, you got to care about yourself, take care of yourself.
Yes to that. Connecting with what are we eating and drinking? How does it make us feel? Now, I'm not talking about in that 30 to 60 seconds while it's in your mouth and going down. I'm talking about the hour or several hours or the next day, because in the digestive process, it can take a little while. And so what you've described, I think, Maryann, is intuitive eating, connecting with what we're eating and how we're feeling, with the clarity in our thought, the brain fog,
Exactly.
how anxiety, how we're sleeping, because certainly I notice that when I have a full beer or alcoholic drink that I'll be awake at 3 to 4 when my liver is trying to process all that stuff and it feels overloaded. And when I could enjoy all those things and not have a negative impact, but tuning into that is such a gift to the body and the mind. And I appreciate that you brought up sometimes women need to know that you need to look at what you're eating. Sometimes dairy is the culprit for people. Sometimes it's gluten. Sometimes it's soy. Sometimes it's the alcohol. Sometimes it's the sugar.
Mm-hmm.
And circling back to your comment on loss, I went through a grieving process, not only of the people that I lost over these years, but the food loss. There's a grieving process of once I come to terms with, okay, I can't eat this anymore. I can't drink as much of this. I need to be mindful of it. But that's a good kind of grieving.
I agree. Because I think of it as it's a trade, right? It's like, yeah, I kind of miss those Twizzlers, but I like better feeling energized. Everything is a choice, right? I have a friend who lost a lot of weight after she had her second baby. And she said, I choose to be able to pick up my daughter comfortably. I don't choose the burgers and fries. And I love that. I love that. You can't think of it as like I'm depriving myself. Think of it as I'm choosing something better for myself because I'm worth it.
I love choosing and that you're worth it because you're worth it. And every woman either watching or listening to this is worth it. And it's okay. And it doesn't mean you can't ever have these things.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of the moderation piece. Or like last week, I went and got a Chick-fil-A sandwich.
Good for
and
you.
fries, and I enjoyed it. And there was no guilt and there was no shame, although I was shocked that it was $10 now. But apparently I don't eat a lot of fast food to notice the prices going up.
Yeah.
So if the message is you're worth it.
We sound like a L'Oreal commercial, by the way.
That's right. You're worth the time. You're worth the effort. You're worth saying no. You are worth saying yes to yourself. And I think that's where a lot of women get trapped. And I'm curious your opinion on this. Some women say, I don't like to say no to other people. I want them to know that I'm capable. I can handle all this.
Yeah, saying no, that's really interesting because not too long ago, I wrote a piece on saying no, the necessity of saying no. And then a few weeks later, I wrote about the necessity of saying yes, because there's two different things going on, right? I think we have to say no to things that don't feed our soul, that aren't good for us, right? That aren't keeping us in alignment with what we want out of life and who we want to be and what kind of person we are. But then we also kind of don't want to have this closed off mindset and not challenge ourselves to try new things, to grow and to explore and to experience new stuff. So I think it has to be a balance. I think you can sometimes say yes, sometimes say no, but you have to decide what is in alignment with you. So it's time to say no to signing up for every freaking volunteer opportunity that comes your way, every potluck, right? Say no to that stuff.
Yes.
Don't take the little job if it's not what you really want to do in life. And I know a lot of us, we skirt around what we really want to do. I do it all the time. I've been playing around on Instagram when I should be writing my book, right? So we all procrastinate. We're all scared to just go into that place that we know we should be. It's normal, it's human. But I think I try to always come back to, is this what I really want? And is this getting me somewhere? Because as much as I like to think that we have all the time in the world and that I'm at the middle point, and I'm going to live to 108, time is limited and time is precious, and we have to guard our time, I think.
Time is limited and time is precious, and we do need to guard our time. You are 100% right. We are not guaranteed to live to a certain age, and our lives and our losses have taught us that. Right. And that's kind of created this fire in our bellies to say, yes, it's worth talking about, having these conversations, because make the most of the time. And when we say no to other things, sometimes we're saying actually yes to ourselves, and it's not selfish, it's self-care.
Yes. Hold on a second, everybody.
Oh, good. Thanks for closing that window. That is super helpful.
Okay, I have to tell all your viewers and listeners out there that I have this crazy neighbor who only decides to do very noisy things when I'm recording. And I even told her to stop. So
Oh, wow.
yeah, they're all of a sudden doing construction. No warning. Anyway, I apologize for that.
Well, life happens, right?
Mm.
And we learn to be adaptable. And yeah, sometimes we just can be frustrated, or we can say, well, let me do the best I can with this right now and then move forward. Well, is there one thing that you would like women over 40 and 50 to really know, if there's one message? I think we've gathered so many of them today, but
So many little nuggets we threw out there. But I think overall, I just want women to know it's not too late. I think we've been fed that line so many times, and there's so much fear out there. I think there's fear that, there's fear we cover up our age, where there's fear of being rejected in the workplace. If you say your age, there's fear of being rejected in so many ways, right? And I think we have to take that back and kind of reframe that, the thought and the concept of being a woman of a certain age. We have to make people realize that this is the prime of our lives. It's this sweet spot between being young and inexperienced, and I think being kind of, ready for the retirement community. This is the sweet spot. We've got everything we need to do to make our dreams come true. We've got the experience, we've got the knowledge, all the stuff I mentioned earlier. And, hopefully, if we're still healthy enough to go out there and pursue our dreams, do it. Don't waste any more time. Just do it. I know two women who got married in their 50s. I know someone who went to medical school in her late 40s. I know two women who wrote their first books in their late 60s. I mean, the list goes on and on and on. It's never too late.
it's never too late. Oh, what a great word of encouragement. I think you've given us so many nuggets, and I really appreciate you. Kind of my takeaway from it is really embrace imperfection, do the thing, take action, and move forward, because you can do whatever is in your heart's desire. And there are those of us out there who are willing to encourage you along the way,
Yep.
or willing to jump on a call and chat about it. And I know you and I are each writing a book right now, and we can encourage each other to take action and not procrastinate.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And we have to keep talking to each other about this stuff. So important.
Wow, Maryann, I so appreciate all that you've taught us, that you've shared with your experience. And again, I'm sorry for all the losses you experienced. And I'm also grateful that you and I can share that together. And also, that is the fuel for these passions of driving, of getting these messages out there to really change the narrative for women over 40 and 50 and beyond, that you can do anything you set your mind to.
That's right. And thank you so much for the work you're doing. It's wonderful. I'm in awe.
Well, I love it. And until next time, thanks so much, Maryann.
Thank you for having me.